Hey there, it's Walt. I was fascinated by a study that Facebook undertook to study whether its algorithms had a tendency to trigger the natural predisposition that humans have to divisiveness. And in fact, the study concluded that its algorithms do trigger the natural predisposition that humans have to divisiveness. And that got me thinking, what is that predisposition to divisiveness? And what is it about Facebook that triggers that? And I think the predisposition to divisiveness is about fear. I think that when we get fearful, we draw in. I think it's reflected in the tendency to drive toward nationalism, to building walls. We have a human tendency to want to protect ourselves, and at a deeper level, at a more meta level, to protect ourselves existentially. And so I think that there is this fear that pervades. And what is it about Facebook that might trigger that? Well, sometimes to me, Facebook seems like walking in to one of those old high-ceilinged gymnasiums where there are hundreds of high schoolers warming up for a basketball game. And it's filled with raucousness and noise and chaos and overwhelm. And you feel like you need to shout to be heard. And so with these two elements, fear and this noise, how can we show up in conversation with more care, with more compassion, with more peace, with more love? The opposite of fear is love. And so how can we see more clearly through the eyes of love? I think one thing, just one small step, might be for us to learn to become better listeners. You know, the research is clear in communications that most of us aren't very good listeners, that we are either speaking or we're getting ready to speak. Rarely are we really connecting and listening deeply. I have an exercise that I use with my coach trainees to really dig deep into this idea of listening deeply. And the exercise is I have the class break down into pairs, two and two, A and B. Person A is the hypothetical client and person B is the hypothetical coach. And we go through an exercise where person A shares something with the coach. And the prompt is that the more sensitive, the more challenging the share, the more effective the exercise. And the prompt to person B, to the hypothetical coach, to the coach trainee, is that they have to listen, to connect, and to listen to what's being shared by their client and not respond for 10 full seconds. And that's a long time. It's really hard. Give it a try. I have. And it really drives home the import to take information in, to allow it to settle, to allow it to get clear before we react, that we're able then to respond and to speak thoughtfully and carefully and peacefully. And we do have an obligation to speak. We have an obligation to speak out against hatred, against bigotry, against racism. We have an obligation to speak. And when we speak, we have an obligation to speak through the eyes of love, deep love. Make it a great rest of the day. Great rest of the week. Talk soon.